10 propositions.
Who will represent you in the state assembly and the state senate?
In Congress, in the White House.
And who will lead our communities? We are reporting the numbers as the vote results come in.
Tonight, your vote, your choice.
Our team's keeping you up to date throughout the night.
From the state capitol to 16 counties in Northern California and the top races across the country.
This is Election Night in California.
And we are monitoring and updating the key national races, including the presidential race and the battle for Congress tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Golston Dart.
And I'm Edie Lambert. We also know you're watching a lot of races here in California, from the statewide races to the city and the county elections. KCRA 3's Lisa Gonzalez and our Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala are joining us tonight with context and results as the numbers come in.
And we're going to cover everything, including our local and state races across California. We have live reports. We're breaking it all down with our expert analysis here in the studio. Results will start to populate in just a few minutes.
Polls have closed now in all states but Hawaii and Alaska as elections offices are counting ballots in the presidential race. Right now, the Associated Press has called several states. You can see former President Donald Trump is ahead in the Electoral College count right now. Many states are still considered either too close to call or too early to call. In the U.S. Senate, Republicans have flipped one seat. That's in West Virginia. If no other states flip, that would mean the chamber is tied at 50-50, with the next vice president having the power to break those tied votes.
Well, one race all Californians voted on their ballots today was the U.S. Senate.
We have full coverage for you. Andrea Flores is with the Adam Schiff campaign at Los Angeles' JW Marriott. That's a big Democratic watch party. How are people feeling there as the votes have just come in now and the polls have just closed for California?
Absolutely. What I'm hearing is that the Associated Press has called the race for Congressman Adam Schiff for that U.S. Senate seat. But again, we are here at the California Democratic Watch Party. As you can see, things are pretty quiet right now. They are starting to let people into the ballroom here. Again, we're at the JW Marriott at LA Live, and as we zoom in here, you can see some swag that's on the tables and chairs there. We have Adam Schiff for U.S. Senate bags. We have Harris Walz t-shirts. There in the distance, if you can see, there is a big poster there, the California Democratic Party Kamala for President poster, and that at the bottom you can't see there but says Daughter of California. So just interesting to see all of the support here. Of course, we know that there are many advocates and leaders in the Democratic Party. We know that the polls have now closed, so still waiting for this event to kick off here in downtown LA. But again, we have heard a lot of people just anxious about tonight. Of course, Schiff has led in the polls, has led in fundraising. We know that he has been on the campaign trail, not necessarily for himself, though, in recent weeks. He's been campaigning for other Democrats in other states. He understands that if Trump is elected as president, that Democratic majority would be important. Also, he has had a lot of support amongst Democrats, especially because he's been put in the spotlight, both here in California and on the national level. We know that he has been called out by Mr. Trump several times. And so he is looking, his party says, to save democracy. A couple of the issues that he has campaigned on includes additional housing and affordable housing. Hopefully that he thinks that that could be an answer to the state's homelessness crisis. Also hopes to do some work on immigration as well. So again, we are here waiting for the party. Again, the Associated Press has called the race for Congressman Adam Schiff. Likely will be a big celebration here, but again, we are just minutes into this event starting. It starts at 8 o'clock. Still pretty quiet here, but of course we will keep an eye on everything and we'll send it right back to you guys.
Well, we know they will have a lot to celebrate at that party. Thank you so much.
All right, from there, let's go to Michelle Bandur out east of where Andrea was at the Garvey Campaign Center. This is in Palm Desert. Michelle?
Well, Golston, I was ready to tell you that it was a really festive and patriotic atmosphere here, but that changed as soon as it was announced that the AP called the race in favor of Adam Schiff. The energy here has dropped. Things have gotten quiet. There were a lot of boos when that announcement was made on the screens here at this election watch party. But, earlier in the evening, before the polls closed, we actually talked with Steve Garvey, the 75-year-old former professional baseball player, stopped by to talk with reporters again before the polls closed. And of course, he loves using his favorite baseball puns. As a former LA Dodger, he said that at that time he was still in the game, ready to score that victory. He talked about being optimistic and confident that in this heavily blue state, he said Californians want to change and that they deserve two voices. And he was asked, what will he do, win or lose? And he says that he really wants to serve the people of California. He said he learned that by playing baseball for 20 years, winning world championships as an LA Dodger, and that he says what he learned in this campaign is that people want to be served and he wants to be a part of that. And so he said the first step for him has to been run for the Senate, and then he says we'll go from there. Now, interestingly enough, Trump never did endorse Garvey here, and so when he was asked about that, he didn't specifically address that, instead talking about his mentor, Ronald Reagan, saying he has the same core beliefs of God, lower taxes, smaller government. But again, we spoke with him in the hours before the polls closed, and he was very relaxed, he was very calm, and again, optimistic. But now that the race has been called by the AP, we'll have to see what he says to his supporters and really what his next step will be. We're told that he's going to speak here to his supporters in about 30 minutes or so. So, of course, we'll be here and we'll see how he will address the crowd and really if he has any plans that he's ready to announce now that this process has stepped in. He did say that he wanted people to learn from the way he ran his campaign, not being a typical politician, as he told us. So again, we're going to stay here. We'll have to hear what Steve Garvey has to say after the race being called, and we'll send it back to you in Sacramento from reporting here in Rancho Mirage.
Okay, yeah, we hope to hear from him. And Michelle, we know you've got a lot of work to do out there, so we'll check back with you in a little bit.
We want to check in now with Ashley and Alexi. And let's start with the U.S. Senate race, a result that obviously wasn't unexpected, and this race called so early after the polls closed. But in just recent years, we've seen this big shift from having two women representing our state in the U.S. Senate, both from Northern California, to now two men from Southern California. How do you think that will change the dynamic for our state?
I mean, in some ways, it really is this monumental shift. In just 4 years, we've seen this complete sea change in what representation looks like for California. But at the end of the day, it is still two Democrats who are going to be representing California. And what's interesting now here is that Adam Schiff is coming in as someone who's been a very vocal, prominent member in Washington, D.C. So even though he's a junior member of the Senate coming in, he could still get out there and be this very prominent voice for the state, this very kind of outsized, vocal Democrat pushing for California values in Washington, D.C.
How do you see him working with Senator Padilla?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, these are two LA people. These are, two people who have come up through California politics for a long time. They know each other, they've worked together, and so I think you're going to see, especially if Trump wins this year, that they're going to be out there probably at the forefront sort of that, democratic resistance, being that voice for California and democratic values against the Trump administration.
And we know that Schiff was the chair of the January 6th committee, so between he and Trump, you could say, they've got history.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, let's talk about Schiff and working with a President Trump or a President Harris. Completely different, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still going to take a little bit before we really know what that relationship ends up being, if it's, Schiff and a Republican president or a Democratic president. But I think it's worth noting that I think the Republican Party was hoping that Steve Garvey would have given them a shot at maybe rebuking the Democratic Party here in California, but that clearly was not happening. And so, you know, one thing that we are watching for the rest of the night, just as we look at your statewide ballot, just what is the message that voters send to the legislature and governor with the propositions? What ends up being some of the implications that will have on the state budget with a lot of the questions that voters were posed with this cycle? And ultimately, you know, the legislative makeup too. I mean, what kind of, I mean, it's the Democratic supermajority is still expected to exist in California, but exactly what does that look like with about a third of the legislature turning over? So those are some of the things we're watching for tonight, but obviously not a good start for the Republican Party here in California with that race.
And so you bring up a good issue here, because we do know that, you know, members of the state assembly are reelected or, you know, termed out every 2 years, and with the state senate it's a 4-year term. But we have an unusual number of openings right now where the incumbent is not coming back, and so you're going to have a lot of just fresh faces.
Exactly, 24 fresh faces in the assembly, 12 in the Senate, and that's just those. That's not even including those who are in competitive races that could get flipped, or where, you know, a challenger could upend a seat. So we're just a lot to watch for, but there are changes coming.
All right.
Ashley and Alexi, thanks. We'll check
All right,
back
we're going to
with
go
you.
and show you a quick graphic here really quick, just to show you where we are as we're continuing to keep up with what's happening nationally for you here right now. This is a snapshot, 47% of the votes being counted so far. You can see in the popular vote, former President Donald Trump leading Vice President Kamala Harris 52% to 46%. A lot to count throughout the night still.
Yeah, and we're keeping track of that because, of course, we've seen in some elections where one candidate wins the popular vote and another candidate wins the electoral vote, which is the, you know, ultimately the vote that matters. Let's check in now. I believe we have Kayla Norwood. She is with the Kamala Harris Campaign Watch Party in Washington, D.C. at the candidate's alma mater, her former university.
Yeah, Edie and Golson, that's right. And I'm sure you could hear some of the crowd cheering just there as they saw that Vice President Kamala Harris appears to be up in Pennsylvania. So the crowd very interactive and lively tonight. Now, when it comes to some of the voter turnout in particular, the exit polling from these swing states shows that Harris is performing strongest with women, African Americans, and all non-whites, college graduates as well. Those are the areas in which she is doing well with those key battleground states. And we know one of the battleground states that is most significant to Vice President Harris is Pennsylvania. It's where she spent her final full day of campaigning. The state has the largest number of electoral votes up for grabs, 19 electoral votes. And so that's why you saw that reaction from the crowd when it came to Pennsylvania. So we know that the Harris campaign is going to be watching that closely. This crowd here also gathered near the stage as they wait and see if Vice President Kamala Harris will end up speaking tonight. Back to you.
Really quick, just what are you hearing about voter turnout?
So really those key issues when it comes to voter turnout, Harris, again, doing well amongst women, doing well amongst college graduates. And then when it comes to, obviously, her supporters here showing up in strong force, really animated as they hope that they can see a historic moment come tonight. Back to you.
Kaylin, thank you. And we want to check back in with KCRA3's Lisa Gonzalez and what we're watching on a national level right now. Lisa?
Yeah, well, we just took a look at the popular vote where it stands right now. Let's take a look at the electoral votes and where they stand right now. And you can see Vice President Kamala Harris with 179 electoral votes and former President Donald Trump with 214. Of course, it takes 270 to win. Now, there are 7 key battleground states that we're watching very closely for you tonight. Here's a look at the map. Moving just from the west to the east coast, we've got Arizona and Nevada. Of course, we have Michigan, Wisconsin, then Georgia and North Carolina, and then Pennsylvania, the critical state. That's a big one because that is the swing state with the largest amount of electoral votes at 19. So let's take a look at the results right now in Pennsylvania. And you can see with 73% of the precincts reporting right now, former President Trump has 51% and 48% for Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's move on to to the swing state of Arizona, and there are 11 electoral votes at stake for the state of Arizona. And you can see in Arizona right now, former President Trump with 49.7% of the votes, 49.5% of the votes, really close here for Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's move on to Georgia. Just want to point out in the state of Georgia, there are 16 electoral votes up for grabs there in Georgia, and you can see 51% for Trump, 48% for Harris. That's with 88% of the precincts reporting. Now let's move on to the state of Michigan, where Michigan, there are 15 electoral votes up for grabs right now. 52% of the votes going to Trump, 47% going to Harris. That's with only 30% of the precincts reporting, so keep that in mind. Let's move on to Nevada. And of course, Harris was just in Nevada over the weekend. And in Nevada, there are 6 electoral votes up for grab. And you can see we don't have any of the precincts reporting there for Nevada at this time. Let's move on to North Carolina, where again, it's a state with a lot of electoral votes up for grabs, 16 in North Carolina. Right now, 51% for Trump and 48% for Harris. Both of the candidates spending the final days of their campaigning in North Carolina, going there several times, holding several events. And now let's move on to Wisconsin, where there are 10 electoral votes up for grabs in Wisconsin. And you can see former President Trump with 51%, 48% for Vice President Kamala Harris. That's with 64% of the precincts reporting. We'll continue to watch this for you. Edie and Golston, back over to you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much for that, Lisa. Joining me right now are our political experts, a Republican analyst, Dwight Williams, here with us, and Democratic analyst, Kimberly Ellis. Guys, this is not our first rodeo here talking about elections. So each one is unique, obviously. Let's kind of just start with the macro and talk a little bit about the presidential election. Just some surprises that you've seen so far that made you kind of think, okay, wow, this is different this year, Dwight.
President Trump's increased voter margins from the 2020 election to the now has shown great success, especially a high increase among Latino men, and the Latino population in general. His numbers are higher this cycle than it was last cycle, and that is tremendously a great success.
Yeah. What are you seeing, Kimberly? What do you think?
Well, I think that we're seeing a lot more young people come out. We're seeing women really come out in droves. And we're also seeing people of color come out in droves as well. So increasing those numbers across the board since the 2020 election points to good things to come for the Democrats.
And, you know, we're looking at some of the states, and without getting too into the weeds, you take a state like Pennsylvania that's very close. It took a long time to get the results last time around. It seems like in some counties that Trump is overperforming and Harris is underperforming in some of these more densely populated areas like Philadelphia. Do you, Kimberly, just tell me a little bit about what you think of her as a candidate. Do you think she made her case well enough to the average American?
Yeah, well, I think that Vice President Harris, in a little more than 3 months, did the unthinkable. She had to mount a national campaign, and she did so in the most beautiful way. I think it was the most diverse, the most inspiring, and an incredibly formidable campaign. And I think that most people who have been following along know that she has been serving in the number 2 spot for 4 years, and are ready to give her that promotion to the number 1 spot.
Yeah, and her critics would say that that might have been one of the problems that she had, that she was part of the Biden administration. And with Trump, everyone knows what the negatives are, but still somehow he still seems to resonate with a lot of people out there.
This is really an incredibly historic election. Think about this for a moment. We haven't had a situation like this since Grover Cleveland, as far as the president's election goes. You really have basically 2 incumbents that are running against each other. And people remember the years, the Trump years, and they remember the Biden years. And there's a degree of nostalgia for the Trump years. They remember that there were no wars that broke out, inflation was lower, gas prices was lower. So there's a degree of nostalgia, and I think President Trump showed that he's an incredibly effective campaigner.
All right, so we talked a little bit about the presidential race. We're going to get to more things California, but that you guys have a lot of expertise on. We'll be doing that later throughout the night. And right now I'm going to send it back over to Edie.
All right, thank you, Golston. And Christopher Salas is with the Trump Campaign Watch Party in West Palm Beach, Florida, in the convention center there. We just saw the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. I have to imagine the mood's a little bit lighter where you are.
Edie, that's right. I mean, a lot of confidence being projected, not just from the crowd here behind me, some of Trump's biggest supporters and donors, but also from the Trump campaign themselves. A lot of confidence pointing to some exit polling they think shows this race is tilting in the favor of the former president. You know, some of the nuggets they're pointing out in the exit polling is that the former president made up ground with young men, particularly black and Latino men, those that, you know, the campaign really made an effort to try and reach out and grab and flip them. We are just learning, my producer's telling me, that the Associated Press, by the way, has called North Carolina for Donald Trump. So that is one of 3 states the Trump campaign has told me if they can win, they will get the White House. North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. If Donald Trump wins those states and then wins all the other ones he's expected to, that gets him to 270. Again, a lot of optimism from Palm Beach County, Florida tonight. Back to you.
Hey, thank you so much. And we have been on the set here, haven't had a chance to check social media. The former president often uses that to speak to his supporters on a broad level. Has he weighed in tonight?
Yeah, he did. You know, earlier in the night, Edie, the former president Donald Trump, with no evidence, said that there was massive cheating. That's a quote in Philadelphia, also alluding to something going on in Detroit. Both Republican and Democratic officials, election officials in Pennsylvania, blasted the former president for making those accusations without any evidence, baseless claims, saying, you know, it's just not true. There hasn't been cheating. So, again, it's kind of the MO for the former president, something that he comes out and makes these accusations without any evidence, regardless of the circumstances. Back to you.
All right, Christopher Salas, thank you so much.
All right, well, the polls have just closed here in our state, and a reminder that as long as you were in line tonight before they closed, you'll still be able to cast your vote.
That is your right.
Yep.
Lizzie Mitri is at the Placer County Registrar's office in Rockland while the staff there are counting those ballots. How's it going?
Yeah, they've been working long days, as you can imagine, some starting at 5 a.m. But now that the polls close, you might say the real work is beginning, because you can see a line of cars starting to form out here. These are from the 29 vote centers all around the county. Those vote centers are now shutting down. As they shut down, they're bringing their ballots here to the election office in Rockland to be processed. So you can see this huge warehouse. This is where all that will be done, and it's just getting started. So only a few ballots being brought back right now. These tables are all set up for that ballot sorting process. And we also know in Placer County, they said they actually had a record number of people register to vote for this election, with more than 292,000 people. So that was a big deal. They were also thinking, because of that, maybe they would see record voter turnout. They're still, you know, had many people who were actually registering day of and voting. So they'll still have to look at those conditional ballots, verify their registration before those ballots are processed. So a lot of work to be done here, just getting started. They say this process of counting everything could take, you know, a couple weeks. So we'll see. We'll follow along and see how it all goes. Reporting live here in Rockland, Lizzie Mitri, KCRA 3 News.
All right, Lizzie, thank you. And we have seen a large turnout at some locations tonight.
Absolutely. Leanne Denier's at Sacramento State, and some are prepared to wait there for hours. Last time we checked with you, Leanne.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see Sacramento State students are still voting at this point. But I want to show you this. Some of the students are still waiting to vote. You can see there is still a line just behind me here. And like we've been talking about throughout the afternoon today, as long as you are in line by 8 o'clock, you are going to be given the opportunity to vote. But I want to show you this. This is what things looked like here earlier this afternoon when lines were just wrapped around the entire hall. Take a look at this. We spoke with students who waited upwards of 2 hours to cast their ballots here on campus, and you can just see how those lines go on and on and on through this vote center. And while any Sacramento County voter can vote here, the inspector running this site says that the bulk of voters are Sacramento State students. The vote center, like others, closed at 8 o'clock, but as are the rules, anyone in line by 8 o'clock will be allowed to vote here tonight. And students told us they're happy to wait. They did not want to miss their opportunity to have their vote counted in this election. And elections officials told us they're thrilled to help them do so.
I think right now is like the most critical time for us to like expressing our right to vote and choose the world leaders that are going to guide us.
It's my first time voting, so I'm really excited too. And also, like, I'm really scared because I believe in women's rights and I believe in queer rights, and those are my rights.
It makes me very happy. It gives me a lot of hope for the future. It definitely does, because again, these are 95% young people in this line. And just to see they're all so engaged and wanting to put up with the 2-hour line, it's fantastic. It really is.
So we've actually just stepped out from the voting center to show you that the line is still happening right now, that there are still students who are lined up. They are waiting to make their way into the vote center. And like we've been saying throughout the day, if you were in line by 8 o'clock before they closed the doors, you will be allowed to cast your ballot. And these Sacramento State students tell us they are ready to do that. At Sac State, Leanne Denyer, KCRA 3 News.
All right, Leanne, thank you. All right, we want to run you through some of the ballot propositions that everyone in the state voted for. So let's start with Prop 32, and that would raise the minimum wage to $18 over the next 2 years, depending on the size of the company. Currently, minimum wage is $16 an hour for most. Depends on if you're in fast food or medical industries. And so right now we see voters voting that down 45 to 55%. But again, keep in mind, we only have 12% reporting, so it is really still too early to call.
All right, let's go to Prop 33 right now. This one you probably saw way more commercials on this than you wanted to see, but you can see right now that this is going down at this point right now. Majority voting no. This is the one that would ask voters to make it easier for cities and counties to limit how much a landlord can charge a tenant for rent. The ballot measure specifically repealing a state law that restricts the ability for cities and counties to impose rent control.
Now to Prop 34, which on the surface deals with health care spending. And that one looks to be passing by a pretty narrow margin at this point. But again, it is too soon to say for sure. This one is it's got a lot of layers. Let's just say that.
There's a backstory.
There's a backstory. Some call it a revenge proposition targeting the LA-based AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which put Prop 33 on the ballot.
And we can maybe talk about that a little bit later tonight. Ashley's nodding her head. Yes. Okay, well, let's go to Prop 35 right now. This is the one that would create a permanent tax on health insurance providers. And you can see here, this one is passing right now with just 14% reporting right now.
And now to Prop 36, another one that we've heard quite a bit about in this election cycle and has really divided Democrats. And this one seems to be passing by a large margin. If that holds, that would really support what the polls have been showing all along. And this one would increase penalties for some crimes, including fentanyl dealers and repeat theft crimes, by bumping them from misdemeanors to felonies. And let's bring you in, Ashley, to talk about this one, because we've had the governor on one side of this saying we don't need it. We've passed state laws now that deal with exactly this. And on the other side, many Democrats who say we've had it with the fentanyl, and we've had it with the retail crime.
Right. We started the night asking what message will voters send to the legislature and governor?
Right.
And Proposition 36 is the ultimate rebuke of them. I mean, since the beginning of this year, the legislature and governor, legislative leaders, both Democrats, have said that they didn't think that Proposition 36, or what became Prop 36, was needed on the ballot. There were multiple attempts to try to get it off the ballot. There was a negotiation. There was an attempt to leverage a whole proposed set of state laws around retail theft. But I mean, a lot of what's in Proposition 36 was brought to the legislature over and over and over again, including Alexandra's Law, which provides the same advisement that those convicted of DUI get would now be applied to fentanyl dealers who, if they sell the drug and deal it again and someone dies, they could face murder charges. Just giving that court warning was shot down numerous times in the legislature, and this was voters basically saying this is what we wanted, and so here we are.
Yeah, and let's go to Prop 33 right now. Again,
Yeah.
we saw a lot of commercials on this, and this one's a little bit complicated.
It is complicated, and this is actually the third time it's on the ballot. The second time was in 2018, and in 2019, the legislature and governor actually went ahead and approved a new law that actually did cap rent statewide at 5% plus inflation. So there was some movement movement to try to rein in rent increases, I should say. But yeah, this one was a big concern because of how it would impact housing development, affordable housing development, and restricting housing construction is probably the last thing you want to do in a state where the supply is so desperately needed. And that was the message from opponents on Prop 33.
All right, so I'm glad we touched on those. We'll continue to follow those throughout the night. Right now, we want to get you caught up on some of the congressional district races going on here in our state, especially specifically in our area, Edie.
So let's start with the first congressional district. Doug LaMalfa looks like maybe cruising to another victory. He's been the incumbent there since 2013. Let's go to District 3 right now. That is Mike Thompson, the incumbent since 1998 in I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kiley.
We are now looking at the Kevin Kiley race. Yeah, thank you. This area covers several counties in Northern California and the Eastern Sierra. A lot of money going into this one, but it looks like at this point, Kevin Kiley ahead of Jessica Morse.
This one, let's check in with District 9 right now. This one's interesting, or actually we're going to jump around to District 4 right now. That's Mike Thompson, who's been in office since 1998. And looks to have just an insurmountable lead right now at 65%.
We don't have his opponent there, but it's John Munn, who's a farmer and rancher.
Yep.
All right, going now to
District 9.
District 9.
A lot of money being spent on that one.
That's right. That's been another one that's been pretty contentious. You've had the current mayor of Stockton, I should say, Kevin Lincoln, taking on Josh Harder, the incumbent, who's only been in office for 2 years. And at this point, seeking his fourth term. Thank you. I've got my numbers wrong on here. So we are looking at this point, still too soon to tell, but Josh Harder up 54 to 46%.
And before we go, we've got this one, District 13, another interesting one. You've probably seen a ton of commercials on these guys here. You've got Adam Gray and you've got Josh Duarte, the incumbent, since 2022. Again, a lot of money being spent on this. Super close in 2022, just over 560 votes separating these guys at the close of the last election. It was so close that both of them went to Washington to undergo congressional orientation. John Duarte squeaking that one out at the time. So we'll continue to watch this, and you can see that we've just changed the numbers there. Adam Gray currently in the lead.
Did you want to weigh in on this one, Ash?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's just worth noting Adam Gray is a former state assemblyman. And yeah, I mean, this race was so close, and it's interesting to see it flip-flop in real time. But yeah, I mean, just about 600 votes separated these two. And this was the race in our area that both parties just absolutely poured money into, because it could be this race that determines the balance of power in Congress.
Okay, and you can see how close it is. Again.
Right.
All right, we want to catch up on some other things, including here's what we know right now. Nationally speaking, right now, the Associated Press has called North Carolina and its 16 electoral votes for former President Donald Trump. NBC News at this point still saying it's too close to call, but the AP giving it to Trump. You can see the Electoral College vote breakdown right now, and many states are still considered either too close to call or too early to call. You can see a lot of those still out on the table there. We're talking Virginia, Pennsylvania, those blue wall states, Michigan, Wisconsin. A lot of electoral votes still tied up in those states right there. We could be seeing a change in the control of the Senate with Republicans flipping yet another seat. NBC News projecting Republican Bernie Moreno winning in Ohio against the incumbent Sherrod Brown. A seat was flipped for West Virginia earlier tonight. So we'll keep watching to see how the complexion of the Senate changes throughout the night.
And of course, Californians electing a U.S. Senator this year with no incumbent. And that was called very early for Adam Schiff, the Democrat, who will be, in a sense, succeeding the late Dianne Feinstein. We've had a kind of a placeholder in that. LaFonza Butler, who decided she was appointed to the seat and then decided not to run for the seat herself, which opened up this race to the race between Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey. And again, the Associated Press has called this for Adam Schiff.
All right, we're going to check in to see what's going on from Washington, D.C. You can see Jackie DeFusco joining us right now, talking about the control of Congress as we see some of these seats being flipped in the Senate, and still watching how things are moving in the House as well. Jackie.
Yeah, Edie Golson, that's right. And as you guys just reported, it is appearing like Republicans are poised to take the Senate, as we have seen them flip seats in West Virginia earlier tonight. And then just within the last couple of minutes, the Associated Press calling that race for Ohio, which was previously controlled by Democrats, but now the Republican challenger is the projected winner in that race. And this could be significant in a number of respects. First of all, Republicans in control of the Senate means that they will have the power to either approve or to block cabinet picks from the next president, Supreme Court picks if a vacancy comes on board. And of course, whether that is a matter of enabling the president's agenda or possibly handcuffing it is a matter of who wins the White House, which we don't know quite yet. As for their legislative agenda, Republicans have said that they want to expand Trump-era tax cuts, for instance, that they want to cut down the federal workforce, the size of it. They want school choice proposals. They want to tighten border security. But again, a lot of the success of the agenda for Republicans, even with control of the Senate, is really going to hinge on whether they can secure control of the House and the White House. The last time that we saw Republicans have unified control in Washington was actually back in 2018, back during the last Trump administration. Again, it's possible that we'll see that, but it could take a number of days before we have the full scope of results in all of these races.
All right, Jackie DeFusco reporting for us from Washington. We'll check back if we need to. Appreciate your reporting on that.
We talked earlier about the battleground state of Nevada. We now have live pictures from the University of Reno. And look at all those students still waiting in line to vote. The poll manager at the school said the delay is largely because so many people are utilizing the same-day voter registration, which slows down the process quite a bit, so they'd be voting there with provisional ballots. We are told that at least 10 locations in Nevada still have a wait of over an hour.
I got to just say a quick shout out to my son and his friends are all having a little election watch party there at University of Nevada, Reno. So
I love seeing so many young people so invested and involved. It's their future, so it's great.
All right, well, 2 major cities in our area voting for mayor, and we're going to check in on those races when we come back.